that's okay. Well, I was actually
wouldn't want to sit there for very long, would it?
introduction after
When get the money there at the bottom.
Is that okay? Rather than I did it before. Because then I would have to explain what people do, and I only want to do that after the choir, because I think the choir, just starting with the choir creates a different atmosphere than telling people to shut up and sit down. Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were just singing. Okay.
Do you want to Diana?
I just did because what I'd very much like to do is introduce why we're having this event, and then introduce the pianist and yourselves. But I didn't want to start the event by saying, "Oh, everybody quiet down, let's start." I thought we could start with the choir.
Yes, get school with them.
What I want to do is an introduction to the songs. Fantastic! Yeah, go for it. Okay, so the mic you will need to use is mic on the left. I will bring that over for you. Okay. Yes, please. Okay. Yes, that would be great. Thank you. I am. Not so good at other things. You are good at organising. I'm so sad that this church is so empty. We have 200 minutes. Hopefully they
Get
will.
you there.
Yes, you never know what change comes from and who it comes from. Yeah?
Oh, she's using it. She's done something. She's done how to get out.
Carlos, the choir. When the choir starts, they will use the left-hand side mic to sing softly. I hope that's okay. Or not. Yes, fine. Is that okay? The other mic. Okay, I will make sure nobody else uses it. We will use the right-hand side microphone. We have an artiste as a videographer.
So do you want Thea then to say we are raised voices? Or will somebody
I
do
will
it?
come back to you and say the choir you just heard was Raised Voices,
Okay.
if that's
Fine.
okay. Do you
Okay.
have a little thing that you want me to read out about you? or
I've got a little recruitment card. I can
That
give
would be
you.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, how do I pronounce Stefania's surname?
Maurizi.
Maurizi, yeah?
Maurizi. Think of Mao and Risi. Can I request you to take your place here?
Yeah.
you ready?
This is Thea.
I'm really nice to meet you. I will give you the microphone. Just that microphone. And you won't. You just need to say no. That's it. You don't need to switch anything on. You don't need to switch anything on. You just, when you're introducing the song, yeah. And then if you give it back to me, I will stand here. Then when you don't have it for the song. You don't have it for the song. You don't need it for the song, do you?
We would do.
I would help, yeah.
Not today. I mean, it's a big call.
So are you happy to arrange yourselves now? Because we're about to start here. Okay, yes, please. Was Diana Stevenson on the piano. Thank you, Diana. And as you can imagine, that piece of music, Bella Ciao, was in honor of Stefania Maurizi, who is hidden behind the choral singers out there. Before we start, I just wanted to welcome our choir. Can you hear me? Mic's not on, sorry. Can you hear me now? No? Sorry, we're just going to check that everything's on. Thank you. Testing now. Can you hear me? Brilliant. Firstly, I just want to repeat my thanks to Diana Stevenson, who was here playing the piano, and that rendition of Bella Ciao was in honor of our special guest today from Italy, journalist and author Stefania Maurizi, who's hidden behind the choristers, but you will hear Stefania's voice loud and clear in a little while. I want to thank all of you who are here. I will do my introductions in a second. But before I go into the introductions, another little burst of music from a wonderful group of people. They're called Raised Voices, and they sing for peace, justice, and the environment. They're against militarism and capitalism, racism and sexism, and they sing at meetings, demonstrations, and other events, including ours. So, very warm welcome to Raised Voices.
Hello. Our first song, can you hear me? Good. Our first song is called In Contempt. It was written by Aaron Kramer and Betty Sanders in 1950. At that time, the height of the Cold War. The Un-American Activities Committee of the House of Representatives was conducting...
Can you hear? Okay. Can you bring it closer?
Was conducting a witch hunt Is that okay?
Sorry, can I hold it as close as possible to you and then, yeah.
Was conducting a witch hunt to root out suspected communists. Anyone whose beliefs or activities aroused suspicion was subpoenaed. If they refused to appear and name the names of others, they were blacklisted and jailed. Some pleaded the Fifth Amendment, the right to free speech, but this did not prevent them from being assumed guilty and losing their jobs. The song is one of defiance, of contempt for the oppressors. In October last year, we at Raise Voices sang it to commemorate the death of Chandler Davis at 96, who defied the committee, was jailed for 6 months and unable to work ever again in the US. And also of Chen Yuzhen, who had just completed a year in detention in China, unable to see her 2 young children. Both of these were family members of ours. We thought it particularly relevant to sing In Contempt in the campaign for justice for Julian Assange.
Free the Truth was created about close to 4 years ago as a space for ordinary people to understand what was going on in relation to whistleblowing, human rights and press freedom in Britain and around the world. We started with a wonderful event that Craig joined us at here in 2019, not long after Julian Assange was dragged out of the embassy and jailed in Belmarsh prison. My co-host, Professor Iain Munro, and I saw this as taking our academic work into a more real-world space to allow us to debate different points of view with candor, with respect, and with integrity. I'm so grateful to see you all here today. Thank you so much. I know we have people in the audience from Norway, Germany, from various other parts of the world who have traveled over specifically to be with us here. We are also joined today, thanks to the wonderful camera people you see here and those restreaming online, by people in the US and in other parts of the world, far across the seas, who care about what we care about, which is justice, peace, and equality. And to have justice, peace, and equality, we need truth. Truth is the fundamental for that. And it is that truth that we are seeking to defend today in defending the right of Julian Assange to serve as a journalist and a publisher and tell the truth about US war crimes. War crimes like the murders, the rape, the torture, the destruction of civilization that we've seen, as well as the war on terror, the impact of the war on terror that saw what you see around the room today, documented by those who suffered at Guantanamo. So around the room you will see art from Guantanamo and the various prints. These were drawn by the people who were kept prisoner without trial or charge. Mansour Adaifi, whose work is on stage, went in as a teenager. He was there for 14 years. And his painting is the story of life and death, separated by a thin line called hope. And his piece, he says, talks about the fact that the US cannot keep people dead in Guantanamo, or essentially living but dead in Guantanamo, while continuing to, we in Europe, we in the US cannot keep people dead while continuing to cherish our lives, because our lives are incomplete and not alive unless those around us are alive and happy too. And it is in this spirit that I welcome you and some of our very esteemed guests in the audience, including the wonderful Selma James, who is here from the long-standing campaign for justice for women and for racial justice and indeed for societal justice. So I'm very grateful to her and to Lisa, who was here at our first event, speaking. And to all of you in the audience, many of whom I know for your work and your contributions to society. So I'm going to stop talking now and let you hear our wonderful speakers. And I'm going to try and resume my place without tripping over something first. This is the one for all the speakers, and I'm supposed to use that one. So just to remind you what's available in the room in addition to the art, there are little mementos at the back, little souvenirs of Mansour Adaifi's painting. And there is a lovely message from Mansour that I will play in a little while, telling you a little bit about the art. There are also signed copies of Stefania Maurizi's new book at the door with
Jeannie and her colleagues. Jeannie is holding it up. If you would like a copy, please pick one up. Copies are also available of Professor Niels Meltzer's, the former UN rapporteur's book on the case of Julian Assange, again available at the door. If you would like to make a small donation, if possible, at the end, towards the cost of hosting a bigger Guantanamo art event with the original art in May, please would you either make a donation in the bucket at the back, or if you'd like to make a larger donation or pay by card, because it will be quite expensive to bring the art for the first time outside of the US to Britain, please let me know and I will give you details. I'd like to start with our first speaker, Stefania Maurizi. Stefania has done some wonderful work uncovering what really goes on behind the scenes in the corridors of power. She has done what good investigative journalists do, and it's indeed quite surprising and in a way disappointing that it has taken an Italian journalist to follow through on the corruption and the nepotism that we see in Britain today. I'd like to start by asking Stefania to say a little bit about her book, and then inviting Jonathan Cook, who is to our right, to say a few words as well about his analysis of the book. And Craig will then come in with his wide-ranging experience of the case and experience of being a whistleblower who brought to light torture in Uzbekistan and suffered for it. So Craig is here both as a journalist, one whom we regard very highly, given his well-read blog, and also as a journalist. So we have three wonderful journalists on the stage, and I invite Stefania first to please kick us off.
So, thank you, Deepa, and thanks to all. It's a great honor to be here, and I feel honored that we started with a song which I really love, Bella Ciao, and which is a song about our fight against fascism, being Italy the country which invented fascism. And I think this case, it really goes to the heart of what a totalitarian state is. And the first victim of totalitarianism, the very first features, the very first thing that should make people horrified about the direction, the direction taken by, is that okay? The direction taken by society is the destruction of freedom of the press. That's how Mussolini started. One of the very first things he did was to establish who was a journalist, who was a legitimate journalist, and who was not. Because that's how you control who publish, what get published. So when I saw the US government saying in its indictment and its press conference for when the charges against Julian Assange were basically unsealed, Julian Assange is not a journalist, is not a legitimate journalist. It reminded me the dark days when the fascist regime was in charge of deciding who is a journalist and who is not a journalist. And it reminded me those dark days. Obviously, we are not in a fascist society.
Hold this closer to you now.
Okay. Obviously, we are not in a fascist society, otherwise we wouldn't be here discussing the Julian Assange WikiLeaks case. But what is happening in this case should scare everyone. And I'm the first to be really scared about what I have seen, what I have witnessed in this case. I have been there from the very beginning, very, very beginning, 2009, when very few knew about WikiLeaks. They hadn't published their bombshells like Collateral Murder, which made them famous around the world. And it all started because one of my journalistic sources, had stopped talking to me. She was convinced she was under illegal interception. And of course, there is no way to know whether you are under illegal interception. It could be paranoia, it could be a real paranoia, or it could be real. There's no way to know whether you are under illegal interception. So that source, that journalistic source, at that time I was already working for the Italian leading news magazine L'Espresso, a progressive news magazine heavily focused on corruption, mafia, exposing fascist threats. And I was working for L'Espresso, and that source that never ever revealed me anything. I still, after 15 years, I don't know what she knew, basically changed my journalism forever. Usually our journalistic sources change our journalism because of what they tell us, what they reveal to us. But in that case, my source changed my journalism forever for what she didn't tell me. She didn't want to talk to me. She didn't want to meet me. She was convinced we were under control. We were followed. We were spied. So she didn't want to meet me. And it was at that point, precisely at that point, it was 2008, 1 year before I was contacted by WikiLeaks. It was at that point that I realized that I needed better source protection, because what we have in a totalitarian state, you cannot expose state criminality at the highest level. They kill you. They send you killers. They send you in a prison, a dungeon for life. In a democracy, it must be possible.